The film begins with a group called the Expendables getting ready for a mission. The leader is Barney, and they have a new member named Billy, who used to be a deadly sniper in a special forces team. At that time, their new mission is to rescue hostages who were taken by a mean terrorist group in Nepal. The person they kidnapped is not just anyone, cause he's a rich guy from China named Dr. Zhang. Without hesitating, the Expendables rush into the enemy's base with tough cars and all their weapons. They end up in a really intense fight against the bad guys. Even though there are only 7 of them, this super skilled team manages to break through the enemy's defense, even though there are hundreds of enemy soldiers guarding the place. Not just Barney, but all of his teammates, including Lee, Yin Yang, Gunnar, Keezer, Toll, and Billy, gave their all in the mission. Fortunately, they managed to defeat the enemy soldiers at the defense area. After breaking down the defensive wall, the Expendables entered the enemy base to search for Dr. Zhang. Meanwhile, Barney and Lee stayed outside to stop the enemy helicopter. Surprisingly, Barney was able to take down a helicopter by crashing his motorbike into it. On the other hand, Yin Yang used his kung fu skills and even a pan to defeat the enemies. After defeating all the enemies, Barney and the others finally found Dr. Zhang. To their surprise, another hostage was there, Barney's old friend Trench. At that time, Trench revealed that he was also hired to rescue Dr. Zhang, but the backup never arrived. So, Trench borrowed Caesar's weapon to help in the mission. They quickly searched for an escape route. Unfortunately, terrorist reinforcements arrived and were ready to attack. Fortunately, Keezer cleverly shot a watermill, causing it to fall on the enemy. After that, the Expendables quickly used a zipline to get away while taking out the enemy guards in the forest. Unfortunately, Barney and Lee fell and got surrounded by enemies. Thankfully, Billy came to their rescue. Turns out, Billy is an amazing shooter, even from a long distance. He took down all the enemies chasing their team in the river with precise shots, helping everyone escape. At that moment, Barney and Lee had a plane ready for them. But the terrorists called for more help, so the Expendables got on the plane to get away. Barney told Lee to fire rockets from the plane at the enemy blocking them. Long story short, the Expendables managed to escape from the pursuing enemy and flew to China to return Dr. Zhang. However, they had trouble landing, so Dr. Zhang had to parachute down for safety. Soon after, Yin Yang joined him because he also wanted to go back home and was in good shape after working with the Expendables. The next day, after they got back to the United States, Barney got his team together at a nearby bar. While the others were having drinks and having a good time, Billy wanted to talk privately with Barney. Soon after, Billy told him that he wanted to quit the Expendables and live a normal life in Paris with his girlfriend because he had enough money. With a heavy heart, Barney agreed to let Billy leave the team. After talking with Billy, Barney went home to his workshop. To his surprise, Mr. Church was waiting for him. Mr. Church is the person who gives missions to the Expendables. He was upset because their last mission wasn't completed as promised, even though he had paid Barney and his team. Mr. Church even threatened to send Barney to a very scary prison because he felt cheated. However, he decided to give the Expendables another chance. This time, Barney and his team had to complete a new mission, which was finding a secret safe inside a wrecked airplane. Turns out, inside the safe was an important document that Barney needed to retrieve. But the safe had a changing password, and if Barney couldn't open it within 120 seconds, the plane would explode. So Mr. Church decided to send a hacker and safe expert named Maggie, who would join the Expendables. At first, Barney didn't want to accept Mr. Church's offer, but he had no other choice. Without wasting any time, Barney met with Maggie to discuss this mission. Contrary to what Barney had initially thought, Maggie wasn't someone who easily got scared. In fact, Maggie could ride a big motorcycle and claimed she could fight. Barney also realized that Maggie was not the type of person who would be a burden to the team. The day after, the Expendables went to Albania, and Billy decided to join them for his final mission. While they were on the plane, Maggie asked Billy about his past and why he left the Special Forces. At that time, Billy was happy to share everything, including why he retired early and joined the Expendables. Soon after, they reached their destination, and Mr. Church noticed a crashed plane there. Without wasting time, Barney quickly assigned tasks. Billy would keep watch outside, while the others helped Maggie inside the plane. Soon after, Barney and Heezer held the safe door while Maggie tried to figure out the codes. But suddenly, the code changed, activating the bomb inside the safe. Maggie had to open it quickly. Fortunately, she succeeded just in time. After retrieving the hard drive from the safe, Maggie and the Expendables hurried back to their plane. However, Billy wasn't at his post, and they discovered he had been captured by a group of mercenaries called the Shanks. They were led by a man named Gene, who had a reputation for being ruthless and brutal, just like the Expendables in the mercenary business. There, Gene threatened to harm Billy if Barney and his team didn't lower their weapons. Realizing they had no other choice, the Expendables followed Gene's orders. Gene's group took away their weapons, even Barney's favorite knife, and also made Barney hand over the important hard drive they had just retrieved. The Shanks were after the information on that hard drive from the beginning. Gene then told the Expendables to lie down until they left safely. Unexpectedly, Gene used Barney's knife to harm Billy, and sadly, Billy passed away because his heart stopped. But before he took his last breath, Billy gave Barney a letter. The letter was meant for Billy's girlfriend in France, and he asked Barney to deliver it to her someday. Before burying Billy, Barney asked Maggie about the contents of the hard drive they had taken earlier. There, Maggie explained that it contained documents about a Russian mine that held 5 tons of plutonium. If Gene found it, they could sell the plutonium or create a very dangerous bomb. Now, Barney and his team were determined to track down Gene and seek revenge for what he had done to Billy. On the other hand, it turned out that Gene had already located the mine Maggie was talking about. He had forced local residents to work in the mines to find the plutonium and had a map of the mine's location, making the search easier. Gene also ordered his right-hand man, Hector, to speed up the excavation within 3 days. Meanwhile, Barney gets a call from Mr. Church, who asks about the hard drive. Unfortunately, Barney couldn't provide the information, and Mr. Church sounded really disappointed. But for now, Barney is determined to seek revenge for Billy's death. Long story short, Barney lands the plane in a small town because Maggie's tracking device lost signal. In the small town, Barney and Lee want to talk to some people who might know where the mine is. The other team members stay in the car with Maggie. Soon after, Barney and Lee go into a bar to find the person they're looking for. However, there are some tough-looking people there who become suspicious of them. There, Barney and Lee have to defend themselves and fight against these people. After they subdue the troublemakers, Maggie comes in with tools to get information from them about the village where the mine is. Once they get the information they need, Barney tells Lee to retrieve the weapons from the plane. That night, Barney and the team stay in an empty building, waiting for Lee, who is bringing the weapons. Late at night, Maggie approaches Barney, who looks sad and is smoking a cigarette. It turns out Barney is thinking about Billy, feeling guilty as a leader for not being able to protect him well. The following day, Barney and his team got ready to head to the mine site. However, they were suddenly attacked by an armed group, which turned out to be members of the Shanks. At that time, Barney and his team were in a tough spot because they had very few weapons. Meanwhile, Lee was still some distance away. As they were trapped by the enemy, a mysterious attack suddenly took down the attackers. Soon after, the person who had defeated the enemies revealed himself as Booker, a mercenary known as Lone Wolf because he always worked alone. What was even more surprising was that Booker was an old friend of Barney who was believed to be dead. There, Barney asked Booker to join them, but Booker refused because he preferred working alone and keeping his lone wolf reputation. Nonetheless, Booker still assisted his old friend and mentioned a village where the residents despised Gene and his gang. If Barney could persuade the villagers, they would get valuable help. Shortly after, Lee finally arrived at the scene with a car full of weapons. Without delay, they headed to the village Booker had mentioned. Unfortunately, they were met with attacks from the women in the village. Fortunately, the attacks were just meant to warn them, and Maggie quickly explained that their purpose in coming to the village was to deal with Gene. Upon hearing this, the village leader named Peeler invited them into the village. There, Peeler explained that Gene and his group had tricked the villagers by offering jobs to the men and promising them lots of money. But in reality, the men were made to work without getting paid. Furthermore, Gene even targeted the children because there weren't enough workers. So Peeler had been hiding the children from Gene and asked for help. She wanted Barney and his team to stay in the village for a while and help protect the children. Unfortunately, Barney was running out of time. Meanwhile, Hector had discovered plutonium at the mine, which meant he needed more workers to speed up the mining process. So, Hector sent his troops to the village to take away the remaining men and children. Long story short, the Shanks arrived in the village and were about to search the church when a priest approached them. Surprisingly, the priest was Lee in disguise. Without wasting time, Lee swiftly took them down with his favorite knife. Not only Lee, but Barney and the others also decided to assist the villagers. There, Maggie also showed her excellent fighting skills to help protect the village. At the same time, Gene instructed Hector to bury the workers once all the plutonium had been taken. Sometime later, the Expendables successfully defeated the Shanks members who were causing trouble for the villagers. Now they were planning to fly to the mine site and rescue the workers. Without hesitation, Lee fired a rocket at the enemy's defensive wall. Barney was determined to crash his plane into the outer wall of the mine so they could get inside quickly. Once inside, the Expendables found themselves in another battle against the Shanks. Sadly, all the plutonium had already been taken by Gene. Not only that, but Gene had also planted a bomb, trapping the Expendables and the workers underground. They had been stuck for several hours with no way out. After waiting for hours, Gunnar came up with a brilliant idea when he realized the rocks there could be used to make explosives. Barney trusted Gunnar because he had a civil engineering degree. Unfortunately, Gunnar's explosives failed due to the damp stone walls. However, shortly after, the wall suddenly started to crumble and collapse. Surprisingly, it was Trench who had destroyed the wall on purpose, coming to repay the favor to the Expendables. Once the workers returned to the village, Barney planned to search for Gene and his men. Trench decided to help Barney again, and he also contacted Mr. Church, who wanted to join the attack. The next day, they quickly hopped into a helicopter and confronted Gene and his men at the airport. As they approached, Barney and the team launched an attack without a clear plan. Gene, who was getting nervous, finally ordered his men to move all the plutonium onto a plane. Meanwhile, Jane, Hector, and the rest of their troops would stall the Expendables in a fierce battle inside the airport. Fortunately, Barney's team received extra help from Booker. At that time, Booker, with his calm yet deadly moves, took down many enemies without using his full abilities. Soon after, Barney chased after Gene and Hector, who seemed like they wanted to escape. Meanwhile, Mr. Church, Trench, and others continued to fight against the Shanks members. On the other hand, Lee secretly followed Gene's bodyguards, and when they let their guard down, swiftly defeated them. After dealing with the enemies, Lee was challenged to a duel by Hector. Being a wrestling expert and a former Special Forces soldier, Lee was more than ready for the fight and easily defeated Hector. At the same time, Barney reached Gene's hiding spot. Initially, they exchanged gunfire, but Gene ran out of bullets. So Gene suggested they fight with their bare hands, and Barney accepted. However, Gene managed to put up a tough fight and even took Barney's favorite knife, planning to finish him with it. Despite being overwhelmed, Barney got back on his feet and ultimately defeated Gene in a very brutal manner. Long story short, Barney and his team successfully took control of all the plutonium, which they would later hand over to Mr. Church. Barney also brought Gene's head as proof that he had defeated him. Before heading back to their base, Mr. Church allowed Maggie to bid farewell to Barney. Initially, Maggie wanted to join the Expendables, but Barney refused because he was concerned about her safety. Since Maggie was actually Mr. Church, she had to return with him whether she liked it or not. Besides Maggie, Booker also decided to join Mr. Church's agency because he was tired of fighting alone. Before leaving, Mr. Church arranged a plane for the Expendables as a reward for their help. In the end of the scene, Barney sends some money and a letter to Billy's girlfriend. Meanwhile, the members of the Expendables team celebrate their successful mission and avenging Billy. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you have a pan, forget cooking. Just use it to hit your enemy's head until they passed out and you finally win the battle.